Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. This will be my very first video. My videos are going to be about sculpting with clay for the most part, but I might get into other mediums in the future. I'm going to try and put out a video every couple weeks, but if I get enough interest and people like what I have to share with them, I'll start doing the videos on a weekly basis. So to introduce myself, my name is Trevor. I live in Sudbury, Ontario, originally from Thunder Bay. And sculpture is by far my favorite medium. I just find it to be the most rewarding. You can admire your finished product from 360 degrees, and to me, it's just the best. I had my first experience with sculpting when I was in high school. In my last year, I really took to it. I really enjoyed it, and unfortunately, I didn't stick with it, because I felt like I didn't have the room for it. And even after we made the move here to Sudbury, our small apartment didn't have the space that I felt I needed to do my sculpting, so I didn't get back into it until we bought this house. And that is probably the biggest thing that I can stress to anybody who is thinking about getting into sculpture or is currently taking a break from it. Don't waste any time at all taking a break from it, because the biggest regret that I have is that I didn't stick with it when I should have. I think about how much further along I would be, how much better my techniques would be, and how much better end results I would have if I had stuck with it and not lost those 8 years on it. So that's the biggest thing as I can stress. If you're taking a break or you're thinking about getting into it, don't waste any time and just do it, because you will regret not sticking with it or getting into it when you have the time. So first I'm going to go over the tools and materials that I use when I'm working on my projects. The first thing that I always grab is inspiration, whether it's music or audiobooks. For this particular project, God of War soundtrack, pretty epic. And so the clays that I use, my favorite thing to use is oil-based clay. I use Chivant clay, medium and firm. I just find the oil-based clay to just be the best for holding detail, especially the firm stuff. It works really nice for something of this scale, especially very, very fine details. And even the medium stuff, it holds a great amount of detail, but I use it for the bigger projects that I have, just because it's easier to manipulate. And if you have, say, a bust that you set down for the night and it's come completely to room temperature, it's much, much more difficult to work this firm stuff after the fact. Which is something that I made to work with, especially the firm clay, is my clay warming box that I made. To me, a necessity for the firmer clays, the oil-based clays. It costs you less than $20 to make, and it's very simple. It's a box with a door, a hole on top, a $10 light, and it's lined with tinfoil. So you warm up your clay before you work with it, and it makes your job so much easier. So the one thing that might be a drawback for some about oil-based clay is that once you're finished your project in the oil-based clay, that it's not finished for you, because this stuff will always stay malleable. You can leave it out on the counter for months and months and months, and it does not dry out, which is also a good thing, but the molding and casting process can be a little bit more expensive. You can always make multiples once you have the molds, but you also have to take into consideration your sculpt as you're doing it. Some pieces have to be made separate and cast separately and then reassembled in your final piece. For this particular one that I'm working on, I'm using Super Sculpting and Super Sculpey Firm, which is an oven-baked clay. It behaves somewhat like the oil-based clay does. Not quite, though. It's it's much more adhesive to itself, and I find the firm stuff to be a little bit crumbly at times, but if you do have that problem, you can always mix it with the Super Sculpting at a 50-50 or a 75-25 ratio, just to give it a little bit more flexibility. So oven baked clay turns into like a ceramic texture once it's baked, just in your kitchen oven, and after it's baked, it's like ceramic. It's pretty durable. I've never dropped one, so I don't know how durable, but they make a nice finished piece. Paint works great on them. It's also kind of nice in that it's a one of a kind. Like there's it kind of makes the value of it go up a little bit, but it all depends on what you prefer. So getting into some of the tools that I use. The tools that I use more often than any of them are the ones that I've made myself. And you can make them from absolutely anything. These are made from barbecue skewers. This one you can see I've made out of a skewer and a ball bearing for rounding off edges. These I all made from just pieces of dowel, welding wire, staples, safety pins, and some 2-part epoxy and super glue to hold it all together. And for the most part, any of the tools that I've made myself, it was only because I needed something for one specific thing, and I find that I always get more use out of them. So homemade tools will probably be the ones that you use the most. If you don't want to make your own tools, or you choose not to, you don't have to spend a lot of money on your tools either. I got this 12-piece set from Princess Auto, and it was less than $20. And 12 pieces, double-sided tools. And you can also modify these ones if you want. If you want to put them on a grinder or sand them down, smooth them out, whatever you want. And other sets that I bought from Michael's Craft Store. These are great tools as well, and I buy the Sculpting and any of my working tools from Michael's because they've always got coupons, which gives you a pretty good discount, so it makes it cheaper for me to get my materials. Another thing, especially when you're working on big projects, I think these are an absolute must-have. Calipers for when you're working on a project that requires symmetry, and these things are really a lifesaver. It can be time consuming working with symmetry on bigger projects, but you're really going to be happy about it in the end if you use those. And another thing you can use along with the calipers is a tailor's tape, so that'll also help you out. Another thing that I use quite often is my clay roller here. Again, I bought from Michael's. And whenever you shop there, always use coupons because it just saves you a pile of money. Some other things, when you're getting into your detail stages of your work, isopropyl alcohol, you can use it with the oil-based clay and with the Sculpey for smoothing out your finished or near finished piece when you're in the fine detail stages. Another thing that I use when I'm in fine detail stage as well is compressed air duster. And the way that I use this is if you're going for that scratchy look when you would use something like this brush or even just a one-line pick tool. When you're gouging deeply into clay, usually what you'll get is you'll get all these little tiny nubs and balls that get scraped up and left behind from using these tools. So what you can do is you take your compressed duster and you turn it upside down, and that freezing cold that comes out of there, it actually freezes all these little balls, and you can actually wipe them away with a brush or your finger, and it won't push them back into those push it back into the detail that you're trying to create. But also keep in mind that this wasn't meant to be held upside down, so use at your own risk that way. And if you are going to use it, then don't hold it upside down and spray for too long. Another thing that I like to use in my detail stages, magnifying visor. A little less strain on the eyes, and you can see things that your eyes can't normally. And another thing that I use when you're in your armature stages of building, you can use wire coat hangers for the really heavy and basic stuff. And then along with that, I use just cheap hardware wire that you can get from the dollar store. This roll of 150 feet was less than $2, and it goes a long way. And if it's not strong enough on its own, then all you do is just double wrap it, triple wrap it, or even wrap it 4 times over until you get the strength that you need. Okay, and aside from those, when you're building an armature, I have learned that I don't really care to use tinfoil for bulking out your armature. I find that, yes, you may save a little bit of clay, but when you bulk it out, and you may have some areas where you actually have too much underneath. So you start shaving down your clay, and then you hit tinfoil. And then you have to cut it open like a surgeon and then rip pieces of tinfoil out until you can get to the depth that you need to get with the clay being on top of it. And as for other tools, I think that is pretty much it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll try and put out another one within the next week or so. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope to see you again soon.